Apparently it has a 30-minute timeout on the recording. Still have enough service here, I should be able to... Yeah, I just don't want somebody else to book it and be like, oh. I think it must be the recording because now I'm getting that echo now that it's recording again. Nah, we gotta have something. So today at 1:30, that'd be our end time, so I'm just gonna add an hour at the end, and then that way we're not... Because we really haven't flown a ton, it's just getting out and everything else. So I'll go ahead and we'll book it. Okay, that's booked. Cell phones in the cockpit, technically not legal, but hey. Okay, but yeah, now we have until 2:30, so... So, okay, we're at 7,800, so you got a little bit, we're coming close. But that's what I said, you look at those clouds, you're like, I'm at 8,000, and you think they were a lot closer when you're looking on the ground. So, get to 8, and we'll level off for a half a second, and I'll show you where the, now keep climbing until we get past the bridge here, it's fine. And I used to be scared to fly close to mountains because you get bounced around, wind coming up off the bridges and stuff like that. Now I'm like, just ride it out. So this intersection right there, you see that there's the house and it comes out of this intersection. He was just to the left of that, about 500 feet off in that field. And I think he landed, went and hiked up here in the hills and went to take off. And that's where he went down. So here you see that restricted area is this blue here. We just have to be over 8,000 feet when we cross that. So I don't typically fly over the solar fields just because sometimes you get a lot of heat radiating up off of those. So when you're ready, you can turn right and head that direction. What's that? Well, yeah, you can get the heat going up thousands of feet. I mean, it's not all the time, but I just figure, it's not that hard to go around them. But yeah, so basically you got an intersection with the little round out there. He was about, if you went 45 degrees in, about 500-600 feet right there. That's where he smashed it into the ground. He was in that little green area right there. Yep. That dirt spot in the green area is actually pretty much right where he set it down. Very not nice to set it down. But when you nose in and stall out, it doesn't, yeah. Okay, so there's 8,300. So now we're on the backside here. We need to go, oops, beat my compass up, that's our, so now we need to go that way because we don't want to go over this mountain. So go ahead and you'll just turn and shoot that gap there. Solars, yep. I mean, if you want to fly over, you can. You might get a little bumpy, but it's not to hurt the plane by any means. We are at 8.5, I'm not at 6.5, which is a lot of times where I'm coming across here at 6.5. So go ahead and level us off here at 8.5, push that nose over. And then let the airspeed pick up. So get a nice horizon line there. And then once that airspeed gets about where you want it, kind of get your altitude back and then you'll trim. And again, it's not a high performance airplane. You're not out here hot rodding around by any means, but yep. And that's like I said, you're hardly climbing at all at this altitude. We got West Desert Air Park over here, so we're just watching for possible traffic to be coming off there. Our outside air temperature, it's 20. Yeah, I mean, right now you're only about 6 degrees outside Celsius. It's 20 Fahrenheit. I mean, outside the aircraft's pretty chilly. Oh. Get back on the practice area here. So yeah, if we wanted to tune in, this is the VOR for that 116.6 is the Fairfield VOR there. That's out on this lake, and that's what this is for, is this gives us our direction, and then we can tune into that and use that to get us our direction there, but like I swear it was 116 on Fairfield. Yeah, 6.6. It's apparently not picking up the signal because otherwise we'd have. So if we wanted to listen, we'd listen for the Morse code. If we're not hearing the Morse code, then it's not getting that signal. That's why we're not getting a deviation off the. Get bobbled around a little bit. It's not too bad. And you're still climbing. Yep. And part of that might be updraft, stuff like that. So you could be like, hey, I'm going to trim my nose down. That probably took that pressure right off. Actually, almost probably a little too much. And now I'll bring the power back because we're at altitude. So I'm going to bring the power back to like 2,400 RPMs. And that will drop your nose too. Because you'd be surprised. Like, it's amazing what 200 RPMs will do on this prop. Like, you'll just feel the lift drop out. You're like, oh, I went from 2,600 to 2,300. You're like, ah. And now we might actually have to trim up a little bit. We'll see. Bump. It's your altitude. You're more than 200 feet off your altitude because your altitude's set at 85 and you're 87, 88. Yep, you just got a huge climb. Yep. Well, you're coming up this ridge, so the wind's blowing this way, and it's coming up that ridge. It's just going to pick you up. But now watch, because you get but the wind's going to hit these ridges and create those updrafts. So, yep, and you watch, we'll get to the other side, and you'll probably get a nice little downdraft on the other side. But yeah, when I was flying out to Bryce, I was getting tossed 500 feet, and I was like, man, like, I can't keep my altitude locked in for anything. Like, so yeah, so you're dropping just a little. So, see if we go up just a touch. And you're welcome to do all the trimming stuff you want to, but you just get to where you're comfortable. So right here, that's your 10 degrees nose up, 2.5, 5. So each of those dashes is about 2.5 degrees nose up. So if you're below the brown line, you know you're going to dive because you're actually nose down there. But you also have to realize with us flying, we probably need about 2.5, something between 2.5 and 5 degrees nose up because we're nose heavy. So we're actually nose heavy, and so we actually have to keep a slight pitch up attitude to stay flying level. So if you're just on the horizon line, you're actually going to be descending. Now, if we were really tail heavy, then that might be a little different. But yeah, the way our CG is balancing out, you are going to have to fly probably between 2.5 and 5 degrees nose up to stay level and not lose altitude. So, okay, so just go ahead and aim for that gap over there on Twilla. We're over our 8,000. Make sure we get to 85-ish. I'll give you a little bit of power here. Tanks gauge is good, oil temperature is good. First time I flew it, the oil temperature gauge didn't work. I'm like, that gets a little nervous. I'm like, I don't know if my engine's going to fail. But yeah, so that starts flashing when you're more than 200 feet out. It's like, hey, you're outside of your desired parameters there. Okay, so then Tooele, I don't remember the frequency out here, so we'll just pull up for flight here. It's super nice. It gives me all our frequencies. AWOS 119725. I'm not going to worry about the weather out there because we're not going to land. So I wouldn't worry about that. If we were landing, then we'd want to make sure that we're going to do that. And then the Unicom is 123. So that's the one we're going to worry about, is getting to 123 so we can talk to the guys out there. But yeah, if we wanted the weather, we want to get, I guess we should get it for the fact that we want to get the current barometer reading, because the barometer might be different than there. And so if we're not set here, then everybody's not on the same barometer reading, and we start having issues of one person thinks they're at 8.5, but their barometer's off, they're really at 8.3. And so we will, I guess we'll pick it up here. Let me, we'll bring it up at 119.725. This radio's a little clunky, but it gets the job done. Okay, so then we'll flop that over. So that's our Comp 2 now. We're way too far away, we're not going to get it. But we can switch over to it when we get there. So yeah, this is the ammo depot straight ahead of us there. We'll come back to the map there, so we have that for situational awareness there. But no, it's been actually pretty good today, not too bad. And again, though, I can tell you when I first flew, what we're going through today made me nervous. We're like, I'm getting bounced everywhere. And you just have to realize that it's just normal. So, yep. That's nose up. Looks like you probably got a little carried away because it's like, yeah, we'll see where it settles here. It's starting to drop there. But yeah, you just do it till it relieves the control pressure. That's what you're just, it's wherever you have those controls. Once you feel that drop off your hands, you're like, oh, then we're good. Because yeah, I was getting mad. You're like, don't fly the plane with the trim, but you know, use the. And I get in trouble for it too. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm surprised we're not getting Fairfield out here. I wonder if it's down for service. Because I usually pick up Fairfield out here. So we're getting a little low. Make sure we stay at our 8.5, and then you want to go for that gap in the mountains over there is where we're heading. And I just do that for the sake of, if it's 8,000, I always want a several hundred foot buffer. I don't want to be like flirting with the. But yeah, otherwise I fly clear out to Vernon Reservoir and fly up that side. So watch, there's your airspeed down to 80. So yep, you're getting a little steep on your climb. Which I pulled the power a little bit, and we can put power back in too. But dude, this thing, if you want to do a stall, we'll stall. But it gets slow. Like I was doing stalls with at like 45. Like it takes a lot to get this thing down to stall. It starts losing your airspeed. Yep. Let's give you a little power. Yep. So it's just like, okay, I can't climb without adding power, so we'll add power. And that's why I said it's crazy because that's only a couple hundred RPMs, but it definitely changes your performance profile. Yeah, this is just the ammo depot down here that you'll see all the bunkers and stuff as we fly over. Getting close. I got 6 minutes on my timer for the fuel. I think they must have had it set up like every 15 or 20 minutes. And I'm going to clear power a little bit just because we are at altitude. So it's just finding that balance of power, pitch. But yeah, I see you're flying about 5 degrees nose up there, and we're flying pretty level. Yeah. Again, not a hot rod by any means. So you'll see this deflected to the right. That's just saying that your course is to your right. Because if we were flying the direction to Twila, we'd be over that ridge there is where we'd be. Like if I zoom out here, you can see the magenta line. That would be your direct to line there if we were flying out to Twila. But we don't want to go over that mountain today. We'd have to get about 12,000 feet. You can see we could get to 12 eventually in this plane probably, but that would be all we'd be doing. So, but yeah, so you got all the ammo depot coming up here below us. We're over 8, so you're fine. But yep, sorry I failed you on the recording. I'll see if I can try to match the audio up somewhat close to what's happening while we're flying. But yeah, everything just feels like it's so slow. You're like, I'm doing 100. You're doing right now. Our ground speed's 93, 95. We got a 17 mile an hour headwind. But at one point, you're doing 100 miles an hour. You're like, I don't feel like I'm like, yeah, yep. You're just like, I'm just crawling along here. So we'll go up, head towards the mountain across the lake there. We'll kind of do just a fly out in that area, and then we'll head back. So. But yeah, you can see all the bunkers down there below us and all the... And then, like I said, it's always harder to trim the plane out when it's a little gusty and turbulent because you'll be like, oh, I got it all trimmed out, and then all of a sudden you get a headwind that kicks that nose up because instant performance increase, and then it drops off, and then all of a sudden nose drops, and you're like, oh man. You're like, I thought I had this trimmed out. This is where it's crazy because you throw autopilot on, and you just watch everything moving while you're like, oh. You're like, that's weird, watching my stick move around by itself. This doesn't have autopilot, so... Yeah. This we get autopilot is, hey, you take it, you're my autopilot, I'm your autopilot. So, but I'm excited to go, like I said, go fly out to Reno or do some stuff, and get out, work the plane a little bit. It's not bad. I mean, Jason's the trim wheel's down here, so I've always joked with him, like, I'm not grabbing your butt, I swear, because you're down there trying to grab the trim wheel, so it's kind of nice on the ceiling here. Yeah, like I said, right now you're getting pretty accurate. Sometimes this will drop off. It won't give you the winds or anything like that. You're just like, no. You got to get your scan. What am I looking at? What am I doing? What? Yeah, and you get comfortable where it's like, oh, I can totally run this. So, but yeah, see, we're even right there. We're 7 degrees nose up. It's yeah, and you're even losing a little altitude and stuff, so you're like, oh. Again, we're 2 big guys in the front, so we gotta kick that up to... So we're just about out of the restricted space here. We'll just stay at this altitude, though. There's really no reason to... And honestly, it's kind of funny, you look at it, you're at 8.5 here, it doesn't feel a whole lot different than 5.5. It's like, that extra 3,000 feet, it doesn't make you feel like, oh gee, I'm so much higher. So go ahead and just try to shoot the gap right between the 2 mountains there. Right now you're about 4,000 feet up. We can glide, we're gonna get, so for every 1,000 feet, we're gonna get 1.5 miles. So we can glide 3 to 4 miles. So. Yeah, this doesn't glide super well, so best glide on this plane is 80. So if we were to lose the engine or whatever else, we try to hit 80 there, because that's going to give us our maximum time in the air, our best, well, not technically max time in the air. There is a slightly different formula for max altitude aloft, but best glide is 80. You're going to get the furthest distance and the best performance at 80 miles an hour. And so honestly, flying, if you trimmed it at 80, you're going to get your most efficient performance, because that's what they call the least amount of drag. So you've got if you were to fly this at 80 miles an hour, trimmed out and everything, you're going to get the best economy out of it because the airplane's experiencing the least amount of drag. But, so yeah, that's what you pitch for at, in event of an engine failure or an emergency or whatever else. We do whatever we can do to get that to 80 knots or 80 miles an hour. So let me give you just a little more. With the 2 of us in here, like I said, it's... Yep. Yep, and that's the thing, is it changes depending on where you're at around the mountain. And so you're constantly making those adjustments. So like a lot of your autopilots are 2-axis autopilot. You have elevator and ailerons. And so, alright, we're due for a fuel changeover. So all my controls, I'm going to put fuel pump on. Yep, and then to the left again. Straight up, okay. I'll hold it there, just wait. We're watching that fuel pressure. Okay, let's go, fuel pump off. Okay, your controls. Your controls, there. Totally lost it. How about that? Try to plug that. Okay, I was gonna say, did you get bumped loose when you reach forward, maybe? You good there? Okay. Yeah, maybe when you reach for the fuel, it kinda... I don't know how tight those sockets are. They might be a little, Okay. So we got a little bit of moisture and stuff out this way, but we'll go out towards that mountain and then flip it around. So there's the other fun part. If you can identify the Tooele Airport, how far out. So right now we are 14 miles away. Yep. So here's your distance to your destination. But even trying to find an airport sometimes gets a little tricky. So now about 10 miles out you start getting a little better. I can see it, but yeah. And you can kind of use this and be like, well, based off the direction I'm heading and where I should be looking for Tooele. So you're like, Tooele's off this direction. Yep, big long. Yep. So I believe it's runway 17 and 35 there. So this would be runway 35 because you'd be heading about 35. We're going to just stay to the left of it here. I stay 4 or 5 miles to the left so that anybody in the pattern and stuff we're not conflicting with. Yeah, it looks like there's about 4 in the pattern over there. So Garfield Stacks is off the tip of that mountain over there. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's theirs. There is one out here too, but that's actually a restricted area over there that we... Okay. So yeah, pretty good eyes on the runway there. You can see the white landing markers on it. Just so I kind of get an idea, I'm going to come back to Provo. We're going to say we want to go to KPVU. So yeah, it'd be about 35 minutes back just because of we're not going straight over the mountain. So we should be good. We got an hour. So yep. Go out down the base of that mountain, flip around up there, see if we can find any cool colors in the lake. We may or may not. Sometimes they're further over. Okay, so we got a jump plane going up. We should be fine over here, but they're sending their guys out to jump. So you're good, head straight towards that mountain at this point. Just that one out there on the lake. This keeps us about 4 or 5 miles to the side of the airport there. And at this altitude, I mean, we'll watch the jump plane. I doubt he'll come over this far, but he might. They just circle up to about 12,000 here and then chuck the guys out. So he's taking off 35, turning right crosswind, so he's going that way and then going to circle around the airport. And the way back will be faster because we'll have a tailwind too, so. This doesn't change. This is your indicated airspeed. So that's still going to show that you're doing 90 knots or whatever on the way back, 95 knots. But your ground speed was going to change. Yep. But yeah, that doesn't get affected. And what's nice though is then it doesn't matter headwind, tailwind, whatever. Your numbers are always the same. I'm always shooting for 75 on a landing. And so, or I'm shooting for 85 on a climb because that is doing your pressure differential with the pitot tube. Okay, so the ILS approach there comes out over the lake. We're fine over here. But that's an instrument approach that you come out and shoot there. I don't see anybody at our altitude over here. We should be good. As windy as it is. Yeah, I know. I was like, wow, gotta make money. This is part of the Army depot. Those are all bunkers. Yeah, but I don't know if they're like don't use them anymore because it's not a restricted space anymore, or maybe just whatever they're storing in it isn't as. But yeah, those are all. Every one of those is a berm, a big bunker there. But yeah, the view is awesome. You can't beat the view. And it's totally different when you're up front with this view versus out a little peephole out of an airliner. You're like, oh, I can, like, yeah. That's why I look forward to getting to fly jets where you're doing that in a jet and you're like, oh, yeah. But, okay, so he's just saying they're going to go over midfield, but normal traffic pattern fine. That's how fast he got up there. I mean, that guy is like, they're flying a really nice plane over here, too. They have a sweet jump plane. I don't know that we'll get, I don't know you'll be able to see their canopies, you might, but, this one I think is just a single engine, because I've gone over by there and used their bathroom and stuff a couple times when we were out flying this way. Its jumper's pretty regular too. I can pull a little power out. That will take care of that for you. Again, it's constant adjustments. Like if you're really trying to fly numbers, you're like little pitch adjustment, little power adjustment, little. I mean, it's just. A little too much. We're going to bring just a little of that back, about right there. Yeah. That's way more fun. Okay, so he only went up to 9,000, so they didn't go super high, so he's just a little below us out there. I was just looking to see if I can see canopies. So the airport's pretty much right off our wing there. Yeah, he's 500 feet above us, but he just said below 9,000. It's probably because of the clouds, because they can't penetrate the clouds either. I mean, there are people that do it, but it's kind of dangerous because if somebody's flying through those clouds and you're in the clouds as a jumper, you're dangerous. You're in a risky spot there. Yeah, I was just trying to see if we can see any canopies coming off of the... Like, I've had them, like, I'm coming in on approach and they're coming in and you're like, oh. Yeah, you get kind of some of the cool greens and stuff out here on the lake. But over on the other side of that lake, you get a lot of reds and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not seeing any, So if you wanted, you can always do kind of a slip. You kick the wing over and then opposite rudder. Then you can kind of see off your wing there. when I fly at the Skyhawk, the guy Kevin's do that all the time for looking for traffic, where you're doing, and you got to be a little careful cross control because you're like, okay, I'm banking to the left but turning my nose to the right, but yeah, he'd be like, oh, turn that way so I can see. So if you dip your wing but then run your left rudder, then I just get a slip, but I can keep that wing down and see over the wing or under the wing, however you want to look at it. But the Skyhawk, he'd have me do that so he can see looking for traffic above us because the wing gets in your way. But you got to be careful because cross control, you can stall it and spin it. You don't want to do those. You get too carried away and you're like, Yeah, I'm not. See, it's like I said, you've seen how hard it is to pick stuff out. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, then I'll come up, I'll fly this, head out the wind over this direction. So that guy just called out, he's over Weggett here, he's 2,000 feet below us. Coming in on the instant approach. And we could load approaches here, like this will do it. So you can pull it up. I don't know that I'm technically legal to fly IFR, but for practices and stuff. And then it walks you through like an approach plate. So like if you're out here, I don't know that I have Twillas in here anymore. Oh, I do. So he's on this approach. So that's what he's looking at to know where he's supposed to be. So he's coming across Weggett there. So he's right about here on that plate. And coming in, it gives you your altitude, your heading, and all this stuff to help you come in. ILS approach actually has a glide slope, so that helps you stay, but otherwise we're doing the step downs. So it's like, hey, when I hit this waypoint, I'm at 6,100 feet. When I hit this one, I have to be at 4,500 feet. Stuff like that you use, so. But yeah, so people come out here and practice them because they're easier to get in on than if you try to get on approaches. In Provo, sometimes it's a little harder. Alright, it's 1:30, about half hour back, we're still good. We'll go out and cross I-80 here and then swing back around. Yeah, see, that's like perfect right there. It's holding altitude, it's just not so turbulent. But then, like I said, a little more power and you're going to climb. A little less power, you're going to descend. A little trim, and it's like just finding that perfect balance of those is like, oh. So this is Saltaire out here, the old venue at Saltaire. And then you can see the Garfield Stack now that they call, that's one of their checkpoints there, is the big tower at the Garfield Stack. Now it's still recording, I don't know. But yeah, so like I said, you look at that, you're almost 5 degrees nose up, and that's what it takes with us because we sit so far forward. And so, but as we burn fuel, we even get more nose heavy. And so we end up with even a more forward CG as we burn off fuel because the fuel's sitting behind us a little ways. So, but the Diamond, you sit a little further back and it makes it so it's a little different balance setup. So yeah, we're doing 93 over the ground, and so it's not too bad. So your ground speed in miles per hour is there. Yep. True airspeed, we're actually going through the air at 107 miles an hour. So if you didn't have the headwind and stuff, you'd be doing 107. So that's your true airspeed. So you've got 3 different airspeeds there you're looking at. You got your indicated airspeed, which is what the airplane's telling you. True airspeed is which is actually how fast you're moving through the body of air. And then ground speed is how fast am I actually going over the ground. And when we do trip planning and stuff, we have to calculate this all out because I have to know what my true airspeed is because that's going to really determine how fast I get to my destination. And I might choose to fly a couple thousand feet higher depending on the winds and stuff because the winds might be more favorable, or I might fly a couple thousand feet lower. So we're flying VFR technically, so So we're right on that border when we should be flying at a designated altitude. Anything 3,000 feet AGL or above, you're supposed to start doing it. So if we're from 0 to 179 degrees, we're trying to do a odd number plus a 500. So we would be trying to do, but we're at 83, which is actually great because we're off. Nobody flies at 83. They're like, oh, 83 is a weird altitude. But yeah, so you get some of the cool reds and stuff over here. You got the blues, the reds. And so, but yeah, so 0 to 179 on a VFR, you're doing odd plus 500. And then as soon as we start heading the other way, we're doing 180 to 360. Then you're looking for even plus 500. So depending on what your heading is, and that way if everybody follows those rules, we should be separated by 1,000 feet from people going the opposite direction. And so, but typically that's at 3,000 feet AGL is where that starts. So we're kind of above that with ours here because we're close to 4,000 feet AGL. But where we're at, I'm not super worried about that, but legally, and it's not even legal, that's the kind of the recommendation because then everybody, again, stays separate. Okay, whenever you're ready, you flip us left or right. Okay, going right. Yeah, you're almost 45 degrees of make right there. That's nice, 45. Getting a little dive there, so you see to pull back a little bit while you're doing that. There you go. So at 45 degrees of make, you should be feeling a little bit of pressure in your seat because you should be pulling about 1.4 Gs. So you really should feel just a little pressure as you come around those turns. And that way you know you're kind of loading it properly. So now you'll watch, see our ground speed already, boom, 115. You're like, all right. Yeah, we'll just, so if we got that way, we have to deal with Salt Lake's airspace. We could do it, but we'll just avoid it. Wow, 830, that's crazy. It's 8 gusting 30. Okay, so our altimeter is 3014. Not a huge adjustment, but we'll watch it there. But yeah, so now with the tailwind, everything's changing. It's like, oh, yep. Yeah, see, we're doing 120 over the ground now. You're like, okay. But yeah, I love the blues and stuff out here. You're like, uh-huh. Yeah, so see, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's only 25 minutes to Provo if you go straight to it, because, oh yeah, it readjusts every second. It's like, here you go. So this is your direction, so that is talking to this for directions. And then the time and stuff, I mean, that doesn't show the time, but yeah. Yeah, so your arrow there is talking to this, telling you how you would be flying it. But to jump over that mountain is a little bit more, especially with the clouds as low as they are, we'll just go around it, and we'll come in on the south side there. But yeah, see, it still says you're doing 90 airspeed indicated, but now you're doing 120 over the ground, and your true airspeed's still about right, because your true airspeed and your indicated airspeed are usually pretty close. And that's the thing, is the higher we go, actually the faster the plane flies, because if we were flying in sea level, we got thicker air. And so the higher we go, and that's why airliners like to fly as high as they do. Yeah, 6,000, all right. He's taking them up there on that one, so just make sure you stay to the right here. They should be fine, but we'll just make sure we don't crowd them too much at all. Yep, yeah, just keep that off parallel there. There you go. So they found a hole to get them up high enough to set. Yep. Yep, that on the left there, you can see the white. Yep, so you got the piano keys, that's your, tells you how wide the runway is. You got your number, then you got the 500-foot markers, then you got the 1,000-foot markers, which are your touch. So the 500's your aiming point, the 1,000's are your touchdown point, is what you're trying to do. So when you come, you point like you're going to land on the 500s, and then as you round out in ground effect, you float and carry to those 1,000-footers. So you try to get that sight picture of, hey, I'm aiming for those 500-footers. So. Yeah, 16,000. So you drop, yep. So they typically, like even here, you'll see it gives you altitudes, but it drops the zeros. So it says -28, that means they're 2,800 feet below me. And so they just kind of drop the zeros off. And then like you do 1-6,000. You don't do 16,000, you do 1-6,000. So up to 10,000, yeah, if you're cold, you can close that or stabbing you. Yeah, because you got to splay your legs pretty wide. Yeah. Yeah, I figured it'd be a little bit of a challenge, but it's doable. So it's doable. And hey, you get to go out and fly, so take what you can get. There, I can fly while you're. Yeah. Yeah, if you need to grab a snack or. Sweet. Okay, your flight controls. But yeah, so just every once in a while we're scanning oil pressure, fuel pressure gauge, making sure everything's green. The nice thing of like a glass display, like when this, like the G1000s, is it just flashes red. If something's out, it like flashes at you and you're like, oh, that gets my attention. Whereas I don't get that with this. You actually have to look and be like, oh, yeah, that's just remaining. So then I need to figure out, you can actually set this, tell it how much fuel you have, and then it's telling you right now you're burning 8.5 gallons an hour, and then it will keep track of your fuel for you. And so you say, hey, I started with 36 gallons, this, and it will keep, it's a fuel totalizer. I haven't actually figured out how to use it all the way yet. So, because yeah, right now it's saying we have 1.1 gallons remaining, which would be a very disastrous thing to have happening right now. So, and I don't know how to reset it. Okay. I've got the guy straight ahead of us. He's 1,300 feet below us. That might be who we're... But yeah, I need to figure out how to do that at some point. But yeah, there is a guy, so he would be somewhat southwest of the field over here. Yeah, let's stay this 8.5, that way we can fly right over that restricted space again. See, like this guy's just cutting close to the mountain, which is fine too. You can just hug the mountain and stay out of their space, but again, I used to be scared to fly close to mountains. I was like, I don't want to go over there and get beat up. My first solo, I think I told you about it, flying to Fillmore, and I'm just cruising along by myself, and I think I was at 7.5, getting to go through the gap, and actually I think it was 8.5, and all of a sudden I started losing altitude, and I'm like, giving it power and everything, and I'm like, I'm just losing altitude, and I'm like, what the freak? And this is my first solo across country, and I'm like, kind of like, I'm not sure what's happening here. Turned around 2 minutes later, I'm climbing again, everything's running fine, and all I could figure was coming off the mountain up there by Scipio, pushing me down, and I'm like, I was just like, I don't know, and so I backed and didn't get my flight, had to go do it again, but I was like, I wasn't sure what I was dealing with, and I was like, I'm not trying to fly over that mountain losing altitude, that seems dumb, because yeah, the closer I got, I just kept losing altitude. I'm like, well, I'm not going to try to shoot that gap while going downhill. But yeah, this keeps track of your G's, it has a carbon monoxide detector in it, it's got the GPS that keeps track of all this here with my iPad, it's pretty sweet. But yeah, like if I wanted to, you can pull up your gauges here. It brings up all tells you, like, gives you a whole synthetic vision, gives me my altimeter, gives me my VSI, gives me all that stuff. So if that failed, I could actually pretty much fly using that if I had to. And you look how accurate it is. That says 8580. I'm at 8590. I mean, it's pretty darn close. Yeah, this is in knots, so 96, 96. I'm like, wow, you're just like, okay, we're pretty impressive. I don't know how you put that in a little plastic device. And they're like, oh, I'm gonna have this be all, so, yep. My magnetic heading, 146. Yours will settle out here, yep, so we got a little variation there, 150, 151. So a slight difference there, but I mean, for the most part, and it's funny, we're flying into Provo, and the airspace shows up here on the GPS, it shows up on the G1000 too, and so we have to be careful taking off northbound in Spanish Fork so we don't get into Provo's airspace without clearance. And I was like, well, I was joking because the airspace on this iPad shows different than the airspace on the G1000. They're off by about half a mile. And the guy's like, what are you going to follow? And I said, well, I would assume follow the certified device in the airplane. He's like, actually, ForeFlight's more accurate. I'm like, what the heck? I was like, that seems dumb that the certified device is off in the... I gotta stretch my ankle there. Anyway, so yeah, it's just kind of funny that he's like, oh no, actually follow ForeFlight when you talk about that because... So yeah, so now you're coming up onto your direct 2, and we can change that direct 2 multiple times, because the further we fly this way, if we hit direct 2 again, it will change where the line takes us over there. It took that direct 2 from where I set it to direct 2, and it doesn't change based off our position now, it just bases it off of where we were when we set that. So yeah, now it's showing you that if you flew directly that way, you'd go right to Provo. And when we get here a little further, I can reset that and show you. But when we're flying VFR, we don't care, because we're just looking out the window and flying anyway. But if we were navigating a flight plan or something like that, and I did that a lot when I was flying my cross countries, even though I could have looked out the window and flown them, I took the time to program the GPS and fly the route and follow the waypoints just to be like, hey, yeah. Yeah, see, you're getting a lot better now that it's not quite so bumpy. You're like right on altitude. Yeah, and that's why I said, this plane actually is pretty stable. My little LSA you just got, I mean, it didn't take a whole lot to send me at a 30-degree bank, and so it's bummed I'm missing it because it was cheap flight hours, but it was definitely a more sketchy airplane to fly. Yep, and I can give it a little bit of power and you can drop the nose and it will... But our ground speed's 116 there, so you're like, yeah. The indicated airspeed is going to be consistent because the indicated, the pitot tube is facing the same direction as the airplane. So if the airplane's getting a headwind, the pitot tube gets a headwind. If the airplane's getting a tailwind, and so it's doing the differential pressure between how fast you're moving through the air and what the air really is. So that's why that works, is because it's constantly adjusting. It doesn't matter how high you are or whatever else. It's just taking the difference between air going into the pitot tube and the static system. And so it automatically adjusts, if you will, to different altitudes and everything because it's a differential gauge. It's not, so it's calculating your airspeed based off the difference in pressures, where everything else we're dealing with is off of your static pressure. So your altimeter is off the static pressure. That's why we have to adjust the barometers, because if it's got a different pressure outside, if that's 2992, we're going to be off by several 100 feet probably. Okay, we need to switch fuel tanks, so go ahead and fuel pump on. Fuel pressure's good. Go to the right tank. Okay, it's in the D10 there, in the D10. Okay, fuel pump off. Okay, and we're good. And then if for some reason you were to hear an engine stutter or anything like that, first thing we do, flip the fuel pump on and go right back to the same tank. So if for some reason something started sounding weird, that would be the very first thing we do, is pump back on, push that lever back over. It's like, obviously something was weird to change there. But yeah, so yeah, you'll still be around 90 on your gauge. It's just your ground speed changes significantly. But even 120, you just feel like you're just crawling. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm moving. It is fun to fly down like over DeFi at about 8 to 10,000 feet when you're right along that mountain ridge there and you're just looking across at it. It's a fun little flight. So yeah, so now if we change our direct to again, your arrow's there. And no, I don't want to add a waypoint, I just want to go back direct to. So now it moves our arrow to where we're at right now instead of the old one. Again, we still not going to jump that mountain, but. So watch our altitude here, just because we are kind of close to that restricted airspace. We want to stay in. There you go. Yep. There's also restricted airspace right at the point of the mountain over Camp Williams and stuff like that. So those are some areas you have to watch out for. But they show up as these blue boxes, so it usually gives you. And then all this other blue here is Salt Lake's Class Bravo. We have to have clearance to fly in there. But this is nice because like I can fly under the shelf there, and it tells me, well, if I'm under 9,000 feet, then I'm good. I can fly underneath that Class Bravo and stuff like that without talking to Salt Lake, without busting their airspace. So that's why when the guy's like, we don't want to fly with iPads in the air, I'm like, dude, how do you fly without an iPad? I'm like, there's so much information available. It's like, it's where you live off to get all your info. Yeah, bumps like that used to just freak me out. I'd be like, I was like, and you're like a little disconcerting. You're like, why am I like sliding sideways? And but like I said, really, you think about this compared to driving down the freeway, you get the slidey motion, but this is smoother than driving down the freeway. If you're not getting turbulence and bumps, I'm like, yeah, you kind of where you get the, yeah. So yeah, it's 140. Should be good. Get us back here in the next 45 minutes. I know, that blew by fast. I was like, crap. But I take a little longer in my pre-flight because I'm trying to talk you through stuff, whereas with just me, I can go through my pre-flight a little faster. Like I said, Bentley's funny because, like, we were doing that, and he's like, we landed in Tooele, we go to get the plane, he's like, do we have to do that long, like, getting ready again? So you see your stall warning flash there, yep. And with a tailwind, it's going to come on. Yeah, with a tailwind, you're going to catch that faster because the way the plane's moving through the air, you're not getting as much performance with the headwind and stuff. So, yeah, and that has an audible tone to it too. It's a little hard to hear, but you'll just see that flash. But even the stall warning, you got a lot of room before the plane's going to start to lose lift. Yeah, it gives you a pretty good heads up. You have to like ignore it for a long time if you want to have an issue. Alright, so you got two options here. If you want, we can cut across and go around the north tip of Lake Mountain and go over Saratoga Springs. Or we can go out the way we came out and just drive back out over towards Utah Lake. I'll leave it up to you, so. Yeah, if you want to do that. So at this altitude, we're fine. I would just start cutting left now and fly over that ridge. We might get a little bumps, but that way we're going to go straight over West Desert Airport there. I'm going to go ahead and pull up their frequency just so that 123, oh, they're on the same as, yeah, they're on the same as Tooele. So, and if you stay at this altitude, we're fine. If we fly over midfield at this, nobody should be over midfield at 8,500 feet because the traffic pattern there is like 5,800, looks like, yeah. So, yeah, head straight towards that mountain then. I'll make a call here. We are, so if I need to see what we can do is we can go to this nearest and it will tell us West Desert Airport is 6.6 miles, so I can make a good position report there. West Desert traffic, Cherokee 7407 Whiskey, 6 miles to the west airfield, 8,500, just going to overfly, heading eastbound, West Desert traffic. And hopefully if somebody else was on there, they'd be like, hey, you know, we're going to tell them where we're at so that we don't have a conflict. Stay this way just a little bit. We do have Salt Lake's airspace there on the left. If we get too close there. Yeah, about right there. That's a great heading there. So we just don't want to encroach upon Salt Lake's there. Again, we should be below it. I believe we're at 9,000 there. Yeah. So even there, we would be below it. But I just figure we'll stay out of it, and then it's not an issue. So yeah, just fly straight over to the lake. Be a good heading for us there. There's a guy 1,100 feet below us here. Yeah, coming over this ridge, you can feel those updrafts. See how it's just shoving you up? You're like, oh. Yep. And then you start countering it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, that's too much. And you're like, oh. Yeah, you're like, I'm at 8.9 now. You're like, look at that. Alright, I'm going to bring Provo's back over here because we have to get that information before we can go into Provo. But we won't get it until we get past the lake here. Oops. My bad. Hit the avionics button. Reboot the GPS there. Yep, you're just getting those updrafts coming off that so if you go more to the right here. Yep, head towards the lake there. Yep. You're getting really close to Provo. There's Salt Lakes there. There you go, keep us on that. And you can trim those pressures out if you need to. Alright. We're about to altitude there anyways. But yeah, just performance difference going over the mountains. But yeah, like I said, I used to be like scared. I'm like, I wish my instructors would have made me go fly over stuff like that. Yeah. No airports within 200 miles. What? The GPS hasn't resynced yet. Since I hit the stupid button down here, I was like, oops, my bad. I've done that once before too. Reached over and rodeo ride. Dave's like, I'm going for the full experience. Just don't go over 9,000. Whatever you do, yeah. Because then we very likely could bust Salt Lake's airspace there. And we can go ahead and actually, we can descend down. Let's go to 8,000. Well, just give us even a little more buffer here as because we're just flirting that edge there. Yeah, you can see here, that blue line is the one you don't want to cross there. Again, don't want to cross it over 9,000, so. All of a sudden you're like, wait, that nose just like dropped. Which is fine, we want to, yeah, so you're doing 1,000 feet a minute right there, down the hill for a second there, you're like, oh. Turbulence. Hey, I didn't hit my head on the canopy, I'm good. I feel good if I can keep the Diamond's a little closer. This actually has more headroom than the Diamond. Yours is touching. But the Diamond, I'm like almost touching all the time. It's like, oh. Because yeah, we're actually underneath their class Bravo here, but as long as we stay at 8,000, we're good. So yeah. Delta Airlines leaving that shadow. I was like, Or no, Sky West. Yeah, didn't you see? I saw the shadow going across. So, yeah, they're 2,900 feet above us. 3,000 feet above us, yeah. Yeah, and then we'll go, you can kind of stay to the left of this tall ridge, and then we'll hook around the mountain there. Yep, about right there, that's perfect. So we're underneath their airspace here, but as long as we stay this, we're good. So I'm going to bring Provo up 125.3, because we're coming in off this side. So that's tower. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch to them. Power back, sorry. You're welcome to grab the power too if you need to. But yeah, it's like I pulled it out while you're descending and then you're like, what was it, airspeed? Charlie. Charlie. So go ahead and we'll take a right. And we are to the northwest of the field. Okay, I'm going to pull your power. I want you to drop down to 65. Is our goal right now. So yep, just let that nose drop. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of point towards West Mountain a little bit because we're going to come around that side of the airport anyway. That's the airport there. But to come in on runway coming on run. Yep, straight ahead there is good. But to come in on 3-1, if we come over here, then he can sequence us in on the base. So, but yeah, we got to lose some altitude here. Just, yep, you're just flat out. Now you're on fly level. Get a hold of him here. You're good, you can fly, just... Yeah, you're good. Yeah, it's about 500 feet per minute, it's great. Yeah. Tower, Cherokee 7407 Whiskey, 8 miles to the northwest, field 7,300, in inbound or stop with information Charlie. Maintain outside airspace northeast of the airport, 7 pursuits of whiskey. So he wants us to stay on that north side here, so we're just going to kind of hang out here and we'll orbit. Yeah. We'll just kind of do an orbit here. I just like staying over the ground instead over the lake too far. But keep descending. And then just stay on this kind of shore of the lake. So you'll just kind of follow the shoreline and then... Then we'll stay at 6.5. Hopefully he'll let us stay at 6.5 across the lake. Northeast, but I'm hoping he meant northwest of the airport, because it doesn't make sense for us to hold northeast of the airport. Okay, so we'll start adding a little power. Go ahead, left-hand turn out there, just do a 180. Just try to maintain this altitude now. Got a guy straight ahead of us, 500 feet up. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, he's got a lot of traffic in there right now. Got a bird. Yep, he's like my backup instrument's way off. There we go, that's a whole lot better. Okay, flip us around. That's the only bad thing about flying out of Provo. Sometimes it's a little tricky getting in. look at you doing 45-degree steep turns. I know, it's fun, huh? South of the airport, I don't want to do that. Just watch your descent there. Yeah. Watch that descent. You start getting a little nose low there. There you go. Yeah, just finding that fine balance of how much which is good. I've done more than that. Hoping he gets some here. Fly towards Bird Island, so 407 Whiskey, maintain 6,000. Alright, we gotta drop. So, Bird Island's just right out here. See, this is what's crazy. You're doing 100 and getting a stall warning. You're like... Alright, I'm gonna take it. Mike Trolls. be fun to get my flaps there, but we'll get there. So yeah, he's just getting us closer so that we can get in here. 6,000. Okay, there's my 6,000. That's why he wants me below 6,000. Midfield left downwind 31, 7407 whiskey. Okay, so midfield's about the tower here. We're just going to come in, head on straight at him. We're going to drop to our 5,500. Okay, our lights are all on. So we do what we call the GUMPS check. So gas, undercarriage, so we're going to go fuel pump on. Undercarriage is set. Mixture is set because we really don't have to mess with it on this one. Prop, we don't have a variable pitch prop, so we're good with the prop. And then seat belt switches. We are going to put carb heat on. That decreases our RPMs there. It affects our performance a little bit. But then we don't have to run carburetor icing on the approach. Okay, we're going to listen and he might move us there, but other than that, we're going to come straight at that tower and then we'll turn out and start our... and he'll bring us in from both sides. So we got to be watching, and so you'll call my base 7407 whiskey. So that means I can go parallel the runway, but then I cannot turn back towards the runway until he tells me. Looking for that traffic. Can almost land in Spanish Fork. Still a little further out than I like to be, but there we go. Yeah, I like to be a little closer to the airport, but okay. So he's going to call our base here eventually. Yeah, I'm right on glide slope for Spanish Fork. So he'll call my base and that's when I can turn left. Go ahead and switch fuel tanks for me real quick. Going left, it pumps on. Yep, just leave the pump on. Okay, that's good. Traffic. See a guy on final just off starting base 7407 whiskey. You got the traffic right there. That's okay. So first notch flaps. start full power. Don't want to get too fast because we got to get that guy off the runway so we can come in. Okay, second notch of flaps. Yep. So we're going to slow us down even more here. Okay, I got traffic in sight, 7407 Whiskey. Yeah, I'll try to slow down as well, 7407 Whiskey. Full knot. Now I'm going to watch my airspeed there. 75's a good happy. So now we got the red light, white light there. So red, we're too low, so it's double red. So we're just going to add a little power here because we're using power to maintain altitude. Right on glide slope there, red and white, red and white. Just going to slow us down so we can kind of give him time to get off the runway, hopefully. He's cramming us in here today. Trying to keep us as slow as I can go without getting too crazy. Yep. Getting a little low. On the low end, but that's trying to give this guy room to get out of my way because I don't want to have to go around. Airspeed is looking good. He's out of my way. We're good to go. So we start backing power off. Come in here. Bring the power all the way out. A little bit of a crosswind there, I'm like. Turn right at Alpha 4, contact ground, 7407 Whiskey. Actually, this control, I like this guy, he's a good guy. Clean up the aircraft, flaps out, pump off, carb heat out, and we're good to roll. And monitoring ground. Alright, if you want to drive again, you can drive. Feet on the floor, take a left. Left. There you go. But yeah, it gets a little intense sometimes. You're just like, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of traffic, and there's two right behind us.
Yep, he's just sneaking us all in there.
I'm surprised that's your land that close. That's pretty good.
As long as they clear the runway, and that's why I was trying to slow down, because if I would have kept up 75 or 80, we could have very easily caught up to that guy. And that's what he said. Sorry, that guy slowed down. He was expecting him to stay coming in faster. So you'll follow the right-hand turn here.
Okay.
And go to Charlie. Yeah, just nice. So the Diamonds don't have a steerable nose wheel. It's just a cast-ring nose wheel, so you steer by differential braking. That's the way you steer the entire airplane. I mean, when you're moving, the rudder will help some. Yeah. But when you're going really slow, it's all about differential braking. But yeah, so then I was trying to slow down to give him a little more space because he was going slower than the tower had expected him to, you know, and he's doing his best trying to sequence in there. Worst case scenario, if I was like, I can't land safely, I could have gone around and he would have brought us back around and let us make another approach. But you're also trying to work with all this traffic and stuff. But okay, so it was the first gray ones here, just past the blue roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, that was
not too crazy. But yeah, like I said, sometimes you burn 15 minutes just trying to get back in. It's like, okay, so go ahead, pass the red one and then right. So not this arrow, but the next, follow the next turn in.
Okay.
And start using your brakes just a little bit to slow us down as we go between planes. So get up on your brakes, slow us down, and then follow that line and stay on that line. Oh, did somebody take our spot, really?
Where do you want to go?
Is there a spot on the other side of him there? Let's... Yeah, I'm like, alright. I'm like, there was a spot there, and now... Is there a spot on the other side of that RV? I'm just trying to see if there's a spot on the other side of this Mooney here. It looks like that is a spot, but I'm like, I don't want to have them get mad and
Yeah.
let's make sure you have the throttle on. I'll send the guy a text really quick and see if he responds, hopefully. But like our spot up there is like a reserved spot. That's, I don't know. And I'll check with these guys before I...
They must have moved it for construction, I guess. They're letting you look for people moving around.
Okay. Strobes off. Avionics off. Master switch off. Anyway, I'll check with...
What's that wind down?
That's the gyro for the heading out indicator that's wound up there.
Gotcha.
Where did my glasses go?
Yeah, shoulder belt. Oh, it's warming here pretty quick.
Yeah. That's why I said I don't like to fly on super hot days.
Yeah.
Not only does the plane not perform well, but
Yeah.
it gets toasty quick. But yeah, I don't know if somebody in this blue building can tell me, or just be like, apparently I need to park the brake on because we're...
Are we rolling around?
Yeah, I'm like, we're going backwards in that wind. Okay.
Wow, that's awesome.